Good evening, folks. Steve here. I just want to do a little talking head video for a few minutes. Some of you know that the family has moved out to southern Ontario, and just want to give you a little update about what we've been up to. I'll just step back here for a moment. This is near Windsor, Ontario. It's called Lakeshore, I believe, near Windsor. Just going by here is the Via Rail train. Okay, that noise is out of the way. I'll just show you for a minute here. There's the trailer we pulled. That's the old Suburban I resurrected from the farm, and it made it here splendidly. I'm amazed. There's the trailer we pulled. We got about 2 tons worth of stuff in it. Kind of built it before we left. This little beach house we got for a few weeks before Gloria closes on the house in the city. This is about a half an hour from the city, and great little beach house. As you can see, I don't know if you can see it up ahead there. That's Lake St. Clair. It's about this is southern shore of Lake St. Clair. And as you can see, the little house here has got a dock and a patio. There's the back of it here. It's got a little boat launching mechanism here if a guy had a boat. And you can see you get some waves. I'm just going to sit out in the dock here and give a little bit of a monologue on something I ran across, which is really interesting. Anywho, hello there again. I was going to sit down on the dock here. It's pretty warm out still, actually. I haven't taken my sandals off since I arrived. Anyway, for the first night we got to Windsor, we stayed at the Holiday Inn, and then that was a little pricey. We realized we were going to probably have to stay in a hotel for a couple of weeks before we found something to move into on the interim. And that was the case, so we moved into a little cheaper hotel called the Economy Lodge in Windsor, and run by some people from India, actually. And I normally like to look around the hotel a little bit. Normally I find a Gideon's Bible. If I have nothing else to read, I might have a look at it. But this one, oddly enough, I say oddly enough, but it shouldn't really be oddly enough considering who's running the hotel, is called, what they had in the hotel room is the Bhagavad Gita. I had heard about the Bhagavad Gita but never actually read any of it, and started reading it and got interested in it, and I asked the proprietor of the hotel if he'd sell me a copy of it, and he told me, well, Bhagavad Gita is not for sale. It's a holy book. It's to be given away. You can have it. And well, we stayed there for a few weeks, so I guess it was worth it. But interestingly enough, I don't think anybody ever read this thing. I think it's pretty much part of the furniture that doesn't get used in that hotel room, believe me. But I've been reading it a little bit, and it's amazingly interesting. Bear in mind, okay, it's purported to have been read or been written millions of years ago by the Bhagavad Gita, but that's a little extreme, I guess. But 5,000 years ago, it says in here that this whole story took place. The story in the Bhagavad Gita took place 5,000 years ago. And it's really interesting. It's startlingly interesting to the Christian story of Christ. The main protagonist, you might say, well, maybe there's 2 protagonists, I guess. There's this guy named Arjuna, who's set to enter this big battle. It's the biggest battle of his life. He has his side there, and he has the enemy, and he rides into the middle to begin the battle in a chariot. Seated beside him is Lord Krishna, who is the Son of God. Basically, he's the persona of God, incarnated as man. And there's so many interesting things. For example, the name of Krishna's mother is Narayana. Isn't that interesting? You change the N, you'd have Mariana. That I thought was interesting. And there was quite a number of things like that in there. But the gist of it is, as I can see it, is not so much the story. The story is interesting of a battle going to take place and this sort of thing. But these sort of old books, I've often thought, that unless we can see the value of them taking place within ourselves, the story taking place within ourselves, they may not have value other than being a story. Now, if you imagine that life is somewhat like a battle, we have our struggles, right? And within that battle, we see the battlefield. Life looks sometimes like a battlefield. It's everything against everything else, everything at odds. Yet, at the same time, within our carriage, our chariot, shall we say, our individuality, we have this, what feels at times like small s self and a larger s self. And surprisingly enough, the Bhagavad Gita mentions this. And they even write it with a small s and a large s. And the small s is our individual soul, our individuality. The larger s is this Krishna. And interestingly enough, I talked to the Hindu people who ran this hotel. And I said to the lady who was at the desk, I said, or was it the guy, I'm not sure, I said, it's interesting how the word Krishna sounds like the word Christ almost. And they looked at me rather blankly and said, well, it is the same word. To them, it wasn't as though it might be. To them, it's though it's Christ is the Greek or the westernized word for Krishna, which is quite interesting. Anyway, so that's another possible line to the overall story of the search within humanity to find the truth. You see. Going back 5,000 years, this is written about. But anyways, what's happening here in this story that I find is when Arjuna thinks that he can handle it all, he wants to quit, he gets worried, he gets all of the symptoms of individualized man who's lost the sense of what he is. Every time he turns to Krishna and turns his life over to what you might call his higher self, then it all makes sense again. He feels confident, he feels strong, and so on. I might be misinterpreting it because I'm reading between the lines and so on, because it's basically one little paragraph after another, written in Sanskrit and translated into Hindi, I believe, and then translated into English, and there's a little commentary by the writer as to what his thoughts are on it. That's what it is. So I'd recommend it. If anybody wants it, very interesting read. If you're deep into this sort of stuff, into a very old examination of self, I recommend the Bhagavad Gita. And I'll tell you a bit more about it at another time. And one more look at Lake St. Clair before I wrap up. You see there's a lot of little beach launch mechanisms along here. It's one house after another with beach houses. And right to the west, straight down there, is Detroit. All right, talk to you later. Bye-bye.